Welcome to the Untypical Parent Podcast. It's a podcast for parents in additional needs families, and I'm your host, Liz Evans. This is the place to find your reassurance that there is no such thing as a perfect parent. It's here to make the hard bits feel lighter and the good bits brighter. Just quickly before we get started, are you looking for practical ways to support a child experiencing school anxiety? This season, I'm delighted to let you know that the Untypical Parent Podcast is sponsored by Terry Wise from Wise Inclusion and Rachel Helm from Helm Education Consultancy. They are experts in inclusive education and supporting children who struggle to access school. Together, they run webinars and workshops to help parents and schools work together and improve outcomes for children experiencing emotionally based school anxiety. If you're supporting a child struggling with school attendance, check the link in the show notes to find out more about how Terry and Rachel can support you. Thanks for being here. Let's get started. Hi, and welcome back to the Untypical Parent Podcast. We have one of our episodes today called The Bookshelf, which is us starting to talk about some books that either authors are coming on to talk about and parents about books that have meant something to them as a family and trying to share that with the community that listen, who are the untypical parents. I have a bit of a special one today. So Joanne Parry reached out to me. She's a parent in a neurodivergent family and reached out to me about a set of books that she was really, really wanting to come and talk to me and us as listeners about. And she told me about these books by the wonderful Elle McNicoll. And I thought, as you do, I'm going to stick out a message to Elle and just see if she fancies coming on to join us. And Elle said yes, after being on tour, has come back from being on tour and has arrived to come and have a quick chat with us. Welcome, both of you. Thank you both so much for coming onto the podcast.
Thank you. It's so good to be here.
Yeah, I'm really excited. And I can't believe that you've got Al here as well. I'm just trying to contain myself.
So nice.
Joanne, tell us a bit about why did you make contact? Why are these books? Why did you want to talk about these books that Elle has written? This could be a bit weird,
Well,
Elle, to listen to this now.
yeah, sorry. um, so I'm a parent to 3 neurodivergent children. I am also a professional and I'm a director of Family Avenue. So speak to lots of parents and families with neurodivergence. And we first come across a kind of spark through the BBC adaptation. So one of my co-directors, Louise, her daughter, Emily, messaged my daughter and said, you should watch this series. And watching the series, it was amazing to see the way that your characters are portrayed in it. And the fact that the autism isn't the central character of the story, which they're fully rounded. They are all of your characters in the many books that we've now read. All of your characters are fully rounded. They do have a different neurotype that has its struggles and its strengths, and that's depicted as a whole thing, not as a problem. They are loved within their family. They have heroic traits. They are passionate, and I loved it. The biggest moment that was the kind of mic drop moment for us with a kind of spark was I was watching it with my daughter, and my daughter really relates to Keedy. And Keedy in that party has a shutdown. She's burnt out because she's been pretending not to be autistic, and she just silently shuts down. And my daughter, who at the time must have been 9, was watching it, and her face completely changed, and she just went, "That's me." And she had never seen anybody that she related to before. There was when you talk about autism and trying to kind of show all the positives and the struggles and see it in its context, we hadn't seen that before. And certainly my daughter, who is what I would describe as probably one of the invisible girls, definitely hadn't seen herself. So we've used your books, Al, in Quiet Rebellion. So we have Bethany's since then. She's read all of your books. We listened to them. They're also available on Audible, Liz, so you can listen to the audio
Good.
ones. but we've read them all. Our favourite is Show Us Who You Are. That's our absolute favourite. But what I do as an act of quiet rebellion is I buy them for everybody. So I've bought them for the school libraries. I give them as birthday presents to Bethany's friends. It's been you need to get your kids to read these books. Because I think that for anybody, helping anyone understand when Bethany's having a silent moment or she can't speak because she's verbal, but her biggest form of communication is through her body language. So getting people to understand that is really important, especially, she's going through those teenage years. And so I love that I can just surreptitiously give to her best friend these books for her birthday, for Christmas. And I think it just spreads knowledge. And I'm so grateful for that, for what you've done. I know I'm gushing, I'm sorry, for how you've helped Bethany and me. And like I say, I spread that far and wide with the families we speak to, with the schools, with local authorities, anybody where they're asking for any recommendations. Like with Liz, I'm like, you need to know about Elle, and you need to have these books in your life.
Thank you so much. That's so nice. And I know that Georgia, who plays Kitty on the show, all of the actors on the show, almost all of them are neurodivergent. Georgia is autistic, ADHD, and so I know that it will mean the world to her as well that the young neurodivergent people are watching her performance and are finding really nice and relatable moments in her. So thank you. That's so lovely.
Really curious, when you started to write these books, kind of where did that come from for you? Because it sounds like there's a really strong message in your books.
Well, I was diagnosed young and I was a high masking, hyperlexic, highly verbal girl. And because of that, there was no media conversation at all happening. I thought maybe I had been misdiagnosed with a boy's disability. I thought I've been given something that I must be the only girl that has it. I don't know any other girls that have it. It was also because I'm 33. So it was not that long ago, but it was long enough. Nobody was talking about it. It was, especially in Scotland, where I'm from, it was just you were diagnosed and then you were not discussing it. You were told to not discuss it, especially in my family. And so I think I got to my 20s and it happened as well. It happens with a lot of neurodivergent adults is that they might have really great families and they might have great schools, they might have great support systems, but by the time they're independent adults, that's when the condition can really creep in. And I found it very difficult in my 20s. And I thought, I just need people to understand why this is happening. I need people to understand why the screeching on the Jubilee line can turn a whole day into a problem. I need people to understand why I don't like office mingling and office politics. I need people to understand why I don't like making eye contact. Like and it just wasn't a conversation that was happening. And I was a kids bookseller. I crashed out of working in an office. I couldn't make it work. And I was starting to work as a kids bookseller, and I would get parents coming in saying, "Oh, my daughter's just been diagnosed with ADHD, or my son's just been diagnosed. We would love a book with a character like him or her." And I would say, "Well, there's this one that came out in 2004, and then that's kind of it." So I started to really notice, wow, there is, and I wanted to recommend books for them that were fun and exciting and page turners, not necessarily lessons wrapped up in a paperback. So I could see there was a huge gap in the literary conversation in kids' books. And I went into lots of publishing offices and I said, look, I think I did the numbers very autistically. I ran the numbers and I said, the percentage of disabled kids in books is 0.0001, and that's bad because loads of that's nothing like how many children are actually dealing with some kind of disability, whether it's a neurodivergence or it's a physical disability. And all the publishers I met with sort of laughed me out their offices and said, well, those children don't read, so what's the point? They said we won't be able to sell those books to foreign markets because nobody likes people like that. I mean, it was horrendous. I wrote everything they said down. I still have it in my office. And so I went home and I wrote A Kind of Spark. And I wrote it in 2 days, the first draft. which is why I think it's quite readable, because you can sort of feel that it's written in one fell swoop. And then I sent it to a tiny, tiny publisher that only had about 5 people working there, and they loved it and published it. And so now I have 9 books, and 8 of them are for young people, 6 are for children, and 2 are for young adults. And all of them have neurodivergent characters, not just in the lead role, but also in secondary roles. And the aim is to normalize it and to humanize it, and to make, as you said very kindly, Joanne, to make sure it's not the plot, to make sure that it's actually just the lens that the story is kind of viewed through. And while I talk about things that are hard and things that are difficult, my aim is always to finish the novel with the character saying, no matter what, I wouldn't be any other way, which is that's defiant for me, because I grew up in a time where it was very normal to do everything in your power to pretend that it didn't exist. So it feels to me very personal to end each book with a character saying, I like myself the way I am.
I don't think that's uncommon, sorry. I was just going to say, I don't think that's an uncommon experience, even now for our kids. When I talk to families, that's what we hear, is that, they don't know how to manage it. The struggles feel too big, and it makes them feel like they have to mask. It's the language that you use in your books. Like, I went back through A Kind of Spark over the weekend, and you talk about how Addie sees in visual images.
Yeah.
So she see voices and noises in colour. Her memory is, if she thinks of kindness, she thinks of the librarian, all those kinds of things. And I think it's so beautifully written and so relatable. And I think it helps. I mean, it's definitely helped Bethany and Emily, and Sammy, my younger son, who's ADHD. And I think I just imagine it's helped a whole generation of young autistic and ADHD young people. And I'm so grateful for that. And I'll let Liz speak now.
Yeah. The thing I was going to pick up on, and the thing that I talk about, is that I find it really difficult when people talk about being dyslexic as a superpower. And I find it really hard. And my son's autistic and he hates it. I remember going to CAMS with my son, and a very well-meaning professional tried to do some work with him about being a superhero and these superpowers that he had. And my son he just couldn't get into it at all. He just thought this was ridiculous. And he just said to her, I'd rather be a supervillain. They have more fun. She thought, brilliant. I love it. I think we should just all go with that. But I think that superpower thing for me, I find really difficult, because I think actually it takes away from, I do find things difficult, and I'm really good at some other things, but it's just me. It's not this superpower thing. And I think you talk similarly about that, Elle.
Well, yeah, there's one character of mine that says, I think it is my superpower. And there's another one, Ariel and Role Model, in a completely different book, who says, absolutely not, it's not. Because I run the gamut. I kind of feel differently depending on which situation I'm in. And the way that I think a lot of people my age who were diagnosed as kids, we clung to the superpower narrative a little bit, because we were dealing with people who were telling us we shouldn't be alive, and that we were made wrong, and that we were vaccine injured, and like all these terrible things that were going on during the Wakefield era in the 2000s. So the superpower narrative really was born out of defiance and out of refusal to go away, and it wasn't something that was handed down from professionals. So I think of it always, and I talk about this with a lot of the readers because a lot of them feel similarly to you, and a lot of them feel the opposite. And I always say, look, I think I'm very literal. I'm a literal thinker. I think about superpowers and superhero films, which I love. And I was always a kid that processed the world through stories. That the superhero is never that happy. A superhero is always someone that's very isolated and very alone, and is often, the trope of them sitting on top of a skyscraper by themselves is very poignant, because that's how the world treats people that are different, even if their powers are sometimes very, very positive. So that's how I explain it to the kids I talk to. I say it can be a superpower. I've written 9 books in 6 years because of this condition. My colleagues who are autistic cannot do that. They don't have the hyperfocus. They don't have they don't have that kind of, they can't tap into that hyperdrive, but I can. And that for me is great. But if you put me in in a bank and told me I had to deal with people's accounts, that superpower would disappear. It would not be there anymore. So it's complex, and I think each individual should come up with their own lore around it. But I agree that having experts and professionals tell you that would be very jarring. I think I would find that quite jarring, and it's and I think sometimes people say that to autistic young people because they want them to. I mean, the thing that drives me crazy, that I hate, is when people tell me, "Oh, but it doesn't define you. It doesn't define you. You might be autistic, but as an author, but it doesn't define you." And I'm like, you don't know anything about me. You're just saying that because it makes you uncomfortable, because you are nervous about how to talk about it. It does define me. It's my brain. It defines every decision I make. It's not the only thing about me, but which is what they mean, I think. But I think a lot of autistics, especially young autistics, reject people trying to put narratives onto them. That's why in my job, I'm always writing from life. I'm always writing from my own knowledge. That's why the characters are usually high masking girls. I always get parents that are like, when are you getting a boy? Like, when are you doing a boy? And I always say, when I have the time to, sit and actually, and it's not just drawing from my own experience. But so yeah, the superpower narrative, I understand it because I needed that when I was 14. I needed to believe that there was some reason that this brain was working differently. And it's worked out for me. But I also understand why, if a psychiatrist or a therapist said it to me, I would be like, please get a grip. Don't tell me about my own brain.
Yeah.
But that's true for so many autistics. I think we are stubborn, and we have to come to we cannot be led to water. Like, we really have to work things out for ourselves.
Yeah, I think that's very true. I know my son, for a long time has rejected the label of being autistic. He feels it's a label. He doesn't want it, and he's moving away from that. And I should imagine, the people that are reading your books, that's helping them find a way through that. And I've been,
Yeah,
very
it's
flexible.
not a glamorous label. So
No,
when I was a
don't want it.
teenager, you wouldn't have been able to, you could have pointed a gun to my head and I wouldn't have said the word autistic. It's not glamorous. It's not aspirational. And so the stories are a way of trying to, it's really cool when parents say, my daughter's finally acknowledging her diagnosis because she watched the show and the girls she loves the girls on the show and they're such great role models. And I, that's one of the reasons we cast them, and they're such gorgeous, talented, autistic girls. And like, they will lead the stubborn ones to it. Because if I could tell my teenage self anything, I'd be like, you don't have to call yourself autistic, but they will come up with their own labels if you don't, because it will turn into something else. But yeah, teenagers, it's so hard being a teenager, let alone a neurodivergent teenager.
Yeah, no, I agree. Joanne, I was really interested, just from a parent point of view. What do you think parents take from Elle's books? Did you learn something as a parent?
Oh, 100%, 100%. I am neurodivergent, but I'm a different spice to Bethany. So, the way that my brain works is not the same as hers. And I haven't had the same struggles that she has to express what's going on in her head. And so reading about how that, I guess that's what I was trying to say before, Al, in a kind of spark where you're talking about Addie she can't say, she wants to say, but she can't say, she can't find the words, and explaining what's going on in her head is really interesting. And it really made me think about the struggles that Bethany has when I'm going, you can tell me, because I kept thinking it was about, I needed to be the welcoming, open space for her to be able to express it. But actually, she can't work out what's going on. So she can't express it because it's not that she needs the safe space. She needs the processing time. She needs to work out what she's feeling herself. And it is that thing that you meet an autistic person or an ADHD person, everybody's different, but being able to kind of think about seeing things in colours, seeing things in pictures, and thinking about how other people's brains work and their experiences, I think is really helpful. And I'm a social worker as well, so I work with lots of children. So it is really helpful just to your experience is only your experience. So my experience of being neurodivergent is just that. It's my experience. Other people have other insight and other ways of thinking and processing.
Just to kind of finish off, because I know we're going to let Elle run off and do her thing. She's really super busy. Joanne, did you have something that you wanted to read out?
I've got a little recording. So I'd asked Bethany if she wanted to, and she said no, it terrified her. We were meant to come and see you because you were at our local library, but Bethany got overwhelmed and we didn't end up leaving the house. But as I said, one of the co-directors, Louise from Family Avenues, her daughter, who introduced us to it, has done a little voice recording. So if you will hear us and listen to it, that would be great.
Favorite character from A Kind of Spark is Addie, because I feel like I can really relate to her, and I like how her close friends support her special interest even when others don't. And even though the villain is named Emily, it is one of my favorite shows.
Oh, that's so nice. Oh, I'm sorry I called her Emily. It's a pretty name, that's why I liked it, but that's amazing. Well, please tell Emily a huge, huge thank you from me. That's absolutely gorgeous.
Oh, I will do. She'll be thrilled that you've heard it. So thank you.
What we'll do is we'll just tie things up and leave me to say kind of, Elle, thank you ever so much for coming on and to say I really appreciate your time and coming on to chat about your books. They sound absolutely amazing. I'm off to download them onto audio and read them myself as a parent. And we'll put all of Elle's contact details in the show notes where you can find the books. And you've got an adult book out now as well.
Yeah, it's very much for adults. Yeah.
Okay, very much. Okay. Do you want to give us just a little bit? We've got a couple of seconds if you've got it, just to talk a little bit about what that's about.
It's a romance. It's called Unapologetic Love Story, and it's an autistic main character. And I put a lot of the first chapter is a school visit. I put a lot of my life into her job and her experience. But it's out now, and it's very shiny. You won't be able to miss it in the bookshop.
I like shiny. That's great. All that in there so people can find that. And obviously as well, we'll put Joanne's contact details as well in the show notes. So if people want to find Joanne and some of the work that she does as well. Thank you both ever so much. It's been great. I've found something new, and this is exactly what I want the podcast to do, was to open up more books for people to read and to know about, and especially maybe for people that don't get into the traditional reading like maybe I do, but finding another way to access books, which is just fabulous. So thank you both ever so much.
Thank you so much, Liz. And thank you, Joanne. Thank you. And thank you to Bethany as well.
Just before you go, I just want to give you a quick reminder that if you want to follow me on Instagram, the podcast has its own Instagram page, the Untypical Parent Podcast. And if you fancy maybe being a podcast host, I also have an Instagram page for the Untypical Podcaster, supporting those of us who feel like we maybe don't quite fit the podcasting mold, but really fancy trying our hand at podcasting. Make sure to go and follow me on those, and I'll see you at the next episode.